It was the second semester of my freshman year, and I had just moved into a different dorm on the other side of campus. My original dorm had flooded after a busted pipe ruined several rooms, including mine. The university put us in temporary housing until they figured out a more permanent solution. That's how I ended up in Hallen House, a much older, partially empty dorm that hadn't been used in a few years. They told us it had recently been renovated, but as soon as I stepped inside, I could tell they were lying. The hall smelled like bleach and wet wood. Paint was peeling near the baseboards, and the motion sensor lights flickered before finally turning on whenever I walked down the hallway. My room was at the far end of the third floor. The key didn't even work properly the first few times I tried it. When the door finally opened, it let out this groaning creak, like the hinges hadn't been used in years. My new roommate, Marcus, seemed all right at first. Quiet guy, kept to himself but friendly when we spoke. He had moved in a day before me, and when I asked how the first night was, he just shrugged and said, "Didn't sleep much. Weird sounds." I laughed it off, assuming he was just adjusting like I was. The first night went mostly fine. Mostly. Around 2 or 3 in the morning, I woke up needing to pee. When I got up, I noticed Marcus wasn't in his bed. I assumed he went to the bathroom, so I walked down the hall and didn't think much of it. But then I saw him. He was standing completely still at the far end of the hallway, facing the wall. Not the bathroom. Just standing there in the dark, with his head tilted slightly to the left. I called out his name. Nothing. He didn't even flinch. I said it louder, and finally he slowly turned his head toward me. He smiled, but it wasn't a normal smile. It looked forced, stretched, like it hurt to do it. Then he walked past me without saying a word and went back into the room. I didn't sleep much after that. The next day, he acted like nothing happened. Talked about classes and his professor like the night before didn't even exist. I thought maybe he was sleepwalking, but something about it still felt off. Things only got weirder. Every night after that, I'd hear scratching, sometimes on the walls, sometimes under the bed. One night, I woke up to what sounded like whispers coming from the air vent above me. It wasn't in English. It didn't even sound like a real language, just gibberish murmuring. I told myself it was probably the pipes or wind. Dorms were old. They made noises. But then came the knocking. It always started the same way. Light, barely noticeable taps at the door. Then a pause. Then again. Louder. This would go on for about a minute before stopping. The first few times I checked, no one was there. Eventually, I stopped opening the door altogether. One night, I decided to wait it out. I sat in bed, phone flashlight ready, and kept my eyes on the door. When the knocking came again, I jumped up and yanked the door open. No one. But this time, something was different. On the floor in front of my door, there was a small piece of notebook paper, folded neatly. I picked it up and unfolded it. There was only one word written on it in pencil. Help. I rushed to show Marcus, but when I turned around, he was already awake, sitting upright in his bed, staring directly at me. He said, "Don't open the door again." And then he laid back down. The next morning, I tried to bring it up, but he just brushed me off and changed the subject. I started feeling like I was losing my mind. I even considered asking to be moved again, but I didn't want to seem dramatic, especially since I had just been relocated. A few nights later, everything escalated. I woke up in the middle of the night to complete silence. No pipes, no wind, no footsteps from the floor above. Just pure silence. Even the hallway lights, which usually glowed faintly under the door, were off. And then I saw it. Marcus was standing at the window, completely still, just like that first night. I called his name. No response. I got out of bed and approached him. When I placed my hand on his shoulder, he didn't flinch. But when he turned around, I nearly screamed. His eyes were rolled back into his head, showing only the whites. His face was pale, expressionless, his lips moving, but no sound came out. Suddenly, he collapsed. I called campus security immediately. They came, asked me a million questions, and eventually took him to the hospital. Later that day, They told me he was fine, just dehydrated, maybe exhausted. But they didn't explain the rolled back eyes or the strange behavior. He never came back to the dorm. The room was mine alone for the rest of the semester. But that didn't mean the nightmares stopped. The knocking kept coming. One night, I woke up to it again. Furious, I decided I was going to end this. I flung the door open, and there, standing just a few feet away, was a man. But not just any man. He was wearing a faded hoodie and cargo pants. His skin looked leathery and dry, like it had been sunburned or rotting. His eyes were cloudy white, his lips curled in a twitching half-smile. He didn't say anything. He just slowly raised one hand and placed it on the side of the doorframe. His fingernails were black, like they had rotted. I slammed the door and called the police. When they arrived, they found no one in the hallway. But they did find something else. In the boiler room on the first floor, they discovered what appeared to be a small, hidden maintenance tunnel behind an old locker. It led to a network of narrow, dark passages that hadn't been mapped on any of the university's schematics. Inside one of the side chambers, they found a pile of items: empty notebooks, food wrappers, student ID cards, and a wall covered in scribbles. The same word repeated over and over: help. Later, I learned that a man had gone missing 5 years earlier. Someone who had worked on the maintenance staff. His body was never found, and the case was quietly dropped. After that night, the university shut down Hallen House permanently. They never made a public statement about why. I was moved once again, and finally, I got through the rest of college without anything too unusual happening. But every once in a while, I still hear tapping. Not just at night. Sometimes in the library. Sometimes in the stairwell. Sometimes when I'm completely alone. And I always wonder, did he ever really leave?